We take a look over here. This is the window to her bedroom. Now, Texas Rangers, I'm told, have not found anything and no sign of foul play or any sign of her packing her bags and running away from home at this time. But several people, including Sean Adkins, Hailey's mother's boyfriend, more than a week later and still no sign of Hailey. Her mother says it's frustrating, but she remains hopeful.
To think that someone could do that to a beautiful child like that, it just breaks my heart.
That terrifying 911 call foreshadowed the nightmare of December 2010, when young cheerleader Hailey Dunn vanished from her bed. While her desperate father frantically searched local dumpsters, a chilling celebration with beer played out behind closed doors. The horrific truth lay buried in a toxic household containing over 100,000 depraved digital files. But when her skeletal remains finally emerged, a shocking loophole allowed the primary suspect to walk free. What really happened on dark Chestnut Street? The nightmare was just beginning to unfold.
I have to do nothing but hope that she left by herself and that she's going to come back to me, because if I don't cling on to that hope, I don't have anything.
To truly understand the weight of this tragic mystery, we must first look at the bright light that was Hailey Dunn. Imagine a vibrant 13-year-old girl, an 8th grade cheerleader whose contagious laughter could instantly fill any room. She was an incredibly energetic teenager, a talented saxophone player, and a highly competitive athlete who poured her heart into the school's volleyball, basketball, and softball teams. Her father often described her as a wonderful combination, a passionate tomboy who loved sports, yet simultaneously adored pretty, glittery, and sparkling things. Hailey was the kind of person who was never afraid to speak her mind, a beloved peer, and a dedicated student with big dreams ahead of her. She possessed a bright smile that left an indelible mark on everyone in the tight-knit community of Colorado City, Texas. But behind that bright, smiling exterior lay a starkly different and deeply troubling reality. Just across the road from her father's house stood 1804 Chestnut Street. From the outside, it looked like any other ordinary home in a quiet neighborhood of fewer than 4,000 people. Inside, however, the atmosphere was thick with a suffocating, unbearable tension. This was the household Hailey shared with her mother, Billie Jean Dunn, her 16-year-old brother, David, and her mother's live-in boyfriend, Sean Adkins. For the children, coming home did not mean entering a sanctuary. It meant stepping into an unpredictable environment where hostile arguments could explode at any moment. Official law enforcement documentation paints a deeply unsettling picture of the constant instability ruling this household. Approximately 10 months before Hailey went missing, the local authorities were forced to intervene during an intense domestic disturbance. The relationship between Billie and Sean was highly combative, marked by constant friction that frequently spilled over into severe hostility. On one particularly volatile afternoon, the fear inside the home reached a boiling point, prompting a frantic call to emergency services.
Jeremy, I really need to file a report on somebody, and I don't have a car to get down there.
Okay, where are you at?
I'm at 1804 Chestnut.
Hold on one second. 1804. What is your name?
Billie Dunn.
Billie Dunn. What exactly happened?
I broke up with this guy a couple of days ago, and he's a little MHMR, and he's telling me that he's going to kill me and my ex-husband, and that it's going to be remembered for a long time. He keeps on texting me, and I've texted back just to try to calm him down a little, but he said it's going to happen.
Okay, and what's your phone number? Okay, I'll send an officer with 1804 Chestnut.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, you the officer on duty?
When officers arrived at the scene, they noted that both individuals were highly argumentative, creating a chaotic environment that left local authorities exhausted by their ongoing disputes. Yet, despite these chilling warnings and explicit threats, the pattern of volatility continued, and Sean remained a permanent fixture in the home. What strikes me the most is how this heavy atmosphere weighed directly on a young child. Caught in the middle of this unstable dynamic, Hailey lived with a quiet, overwhelming anxiety. Those close to her knew she did not trust Sean and felt deeply uneasy around him. In a heartbreaking disclosure, Hailey confided in her grandmother, Connie, about a terrifying reality that happened when the rest of the house was asleep. She explained that in the dead of night, she would look toward her bedroom door and see a dark, motionless shadow standing right outside in the hallway. It was Sean, silently lingering there. Hailey was utterly terrified that he would enter her room, leaving her paralyzed with fear under the cover of darkness. This hostile environment was a ticking time bomb, and the nightmare was only just beginning. The festive warmth of Christmas Day and Boxing Day quickly dissolved into a frigid, ordinary Monday morning on the 27th of December 2010. For 13-year-old Hailey Dunn, it was supposed to be a relaxing winter break from her busy schedule as an 8th grade cheerleader. Her mother, Billie Jean Dunn, woke up early to prepare for a grueling 12-hour nursing shift at a hospital located in Snyder, Texas. At approximately 6:30 a.m., Billie checked on Hailey one last time, noting that the young girl was tucked safely under her blankets, sound asleep in her bed. Everything appeared completely normal and quiet. Billie left the house shortly after, leaving her cell phone behind so the children could use it if an emergency arose. She fully assumed that when Hailey woke up, she would simply walk across the road to visit her father, Clint, as she normally did. Little did anyone know, a calculated timeline was already in motion, spinning a dark web of deception around the unsuspecting teenager. Billie's live-in boyfriend, Sean Adkins, provided an initial timeline to law enforcement that immediately drew intense suspicion from investigators. Sean claimed that he had left the Chestnut Street home even earlier than Billie, at around 5:30 a.m., heading to his manufacturing job in Snyder. He later told detectives a very specific story, that shortly after arriving at the plant, he got into a heated confrontation with his boss, was fired on the spot, and left the premises in a state of professional distress. To an ordinary listener, this might have sounded like a plausible explanation for his chaotic morning routine. However, this is where the story takes a dark turn. When the Texas Rangers and local detectives began tracking Sean's movements, they decided to verify this narrative with his employers. What they discovered completely shattered Sean's alibi into a million pieces. FBI investigator. Specifically, how did Sean Adkins' timeline play out on the morning of Hailey's disappearance? Plant manager. He arrived at 6 a.m., went into the break room, and bought a bottle of Dr. Pepper. The supervisor walked in. He just stared at him, then handed in his uniform, voluntarily quit, and left immediately at 6:10 a.m. This critical revelation from the factory management was an absolute bombshell for the investigation. Sean had not been terminated at all. He had consciously chosen to walk away from his steady employment, completely unprompted. The act of entering the workplace at 6 a.m., purchasing a beverage, staring silently at a supervisor, and surrendering a uniform within a narrow 10-minute window pointed toward a deeply unsettling and premeditated sequence of actions. Why would a person fabricate a massive lie about being fired unless they were desperately trying to mask their true actions and psychological state? By creating a false narrative of sudden professional conflict, Sean was trying to establish a highly dramatic excuse for his subsequent movements that day, but his fabrications did not stop at the factory gates. Sean further claimed to detectives that after leaving the factory at 6:10 a.m., he drove directly to his mother's residence in Big Spring, a town located roughly 50 miles away, to log on to her computer and file for unemployment benefits. He insisted to authorities that he spent the vast majority of the morning there, entirely removed from Colorado City. It was a calculated attempt to place himself far away from the scene during the exact hours Hailey vanished. However, in the modern era of investigation, a suspect's words are easily tested against the digital trail they leave behind. Law enforcement subpoenaed Sean's mobile records, and the objective science of digital forensics completely dismantled his defense. Forensic analysis of the cell phone tower data revealed a chilling reality. Between the critical hours of 6:05 a.m. and 6:56 a.m., the precise window when Billie Jean was driving to her shift and Hailey was left entirely alone, Sean's phone did not ping any towers along the highway leading toward Big Spring. Instead, his mobile device actively pinged towers right inside Colorado City, explicitly positioned immediately adjacent to the Chestnut Street home. He had never left the area. He was lurking in the immediate vicinity of the house at the exact moment the young girl was left completely unprotected. The digital records proved he did not actually arrive in Big Spring until 9:38 a.m., leaving a massive, terrifying 3-hour gap completely unaccounted for. His timeline was a house of cards built entirely on deception, and extreme suspicion began to suffocate his alibi.
According to the affidavit, Sean Atkins abruptly quit his job on the day Hailey disappeared. He told investigators he left his job and went directly to his mother's home in Big Spring. However, the affidavit says cell phone pings taken from his phone indicated he first made a stop in Colorado City, where Hailey was last seen.
Hailey's search team brought in a psychic and investigator to help in the search. The team brought in their own cadaver dogs, went over notes, and went out and searched areas, but still no trace of Hailey in those efforts. Then just this year, search efforts moved to North Texas. A small pizza joint in Crum, Texas plastered Hailey's face all over their pizza boxes. Missing flyers were also posted on windows of local shops there. Those efforts started by Hailey's great aunt, who never stopped handing out flyers since Hailey first went missing.
As the frigid hours of December 27 ticked by, an eerie, unsettling silence settled over the small Texas town. Inside the house on Chestnut Street, a chilling digital breadcrumb was left behind. At exactly 2 p.m., a text message was sent from the cell phone Hailey had been using. It was directed to one of her best friends, containing only 3 simple letters. Wide. What are you doing? The friend never replied. But the most terrifying part of this digital footprint is the lingering question of who actually typed those letters. Was it truly a 13-year-old girl reaching out to a friend on a quiet winter afternoon? Or was it a calculated, sinister move by someone else? Was someone desperately trying to establish a false timeline and create the illusion that Hailey was still alive and well? The tension began to physically manifest just a couple of hours later. At 4 p.m., Hailey's 16-year-old brother, David, arrived back at the Chestnut Street residence after spending time with friends. He walked up to the front porch, turned the knob, and found the door completely locked. This was highly unusual. In a household where doors and windows were frequently left unlatched, finding the perimeter so tightly secured in the middle of the afternoon immediately set off alarm bells in the teenager's mind. Frustrated and wanting to get inside from the cold, David circled the property and ultimately decided to force his way in. He pried open a side window and hoisted himself into the house. What he encountered next would be burned into his memory forever. According to official sealed police affidavits, the atmosphere inside the hallway was thick and suffocating. David provided a chilling account of his encounter that afternoon. Investigator:
How did you get inside the house when the doors were locked? David Dunn: All the doors were securely locked, so I had to climb through a side window. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, I froze when I caught Sean Atkins standing there with a stunned stare, looking panicked exactly like a deer in the headlights.
Why was Sean so profoundly startled? What had he been doing in the agonizingly quiet hours before David breached that window? Sean quickly regained his composure, but that frozen, panicked stare spoke volumes. When Billie Jean returned from her 12-hour shift at 6 p.m., she realized Hailey was not in the house. Sean casually brushed off any concern, seamlessly spinning a lie. He claimed that Hailey had told him she was walking over to her father's house and would then spend the night at her friend Mary Beth's place. The devastating reality crashed down the following morning, December 28. Billie called Mary Beth's parents, only to receive a heart-stopping answer. Hailey had never arrived. Clint Dunn, who lived just across the field and saw his daughter every single day, confirmed he hadn't seen his little girl at all. A frantic panic ensued, and a missing person report was filed that afternoon. However, the initial response from local law enforcement was a catastrophic failure in judgment. Instead of treating the situation with the extreme urgency it demanded, authorities officially classified the case as a runaway teen. This severe misclassification paralyzed the critical early hours of the investigation, wasting precious time while a desperate father began tearing through the town, searching alleyways and dumpsters looking for his daughter. The theory of a runaway made absolutely no sense to anyone who actually knew the young cheerleader. Little did anyone know, a quick glance into Hailey's bedroom would have shattered the police's initial narrative entirely. Sitting untouched in her room were her absolute most prized possessions, her favorite jacket and her MP3 player. These were items the teenager never left home without, especially on a freezing winter day. She had not packed a single bag. She had not planned to leave. I gotta be honest with you, it is incredibly frustrating to witness how early bureaucratic mistakes can hinder a desperate search for a child. Drop your take in the comments. How would you react if law enforcement dismissed your missing child as just a simple runaway while vital hours slipped away? As the days dragged on, the agonizing contrast between a desperate father and an apathetic household became incredibly hard to stomach. While local authorities initially dragged their feet, Clint Dunn, Hailey's biological father, was living through an absolute unimaginable nightmare. He refused to sit still. Driven by pure, frantic love, Clint spent his waking hours walking down freezing alleys, tearing through dirty dumpsters, and looking under every single rock in Colorado City. His hands were blistered, his voice was hoarse from calling her name, and his heart was completely shattered. He was a father willing to do absolutely anything to find his little girl. But less than a block away, inside the house on Chestnut Street, a sickeningly different scene was unfolding. December 31 arrived, a mere 4 days after the vibrant 13-year-old vanished into thin air. Instead of a somber house filled with agonizing worry and frantic phone calls to neighbors, Billie Jean and Sean Adkins decided to host a New Year's Eve gathering. The image of that specific night is absolutely devastating. Clint Dunn stood all alone on his dark back porch in the freezing cold. With tears streaming down his face, he held a pair of binoculars to his eyes, forced to watch in pure agony as Sean casually carried heavy cases of beer into the brightly lit house. Music played, and a festive celebration carried on while a child was missing in the dead of winter. Clint later expressed his sheer disbelief, stating he could not comprehend how a mother could celebrate the new year when her daughter was gone.
Just days after she went missing, court documents say the couple had a New Year's Eve party in their home, but Adkins reportedly said it was just a small get-together. Court documents go on to say that in the days following her disappearance, a search of the family's home found a box containing hundreds of documents focused on mass murderers, serial killers, and murders of family members. The lie detector tests, when asked who authorities should be investigating in the disappearance of Hailey, Sean Adkins said, quote, "both of us," referring to himself and Billie Dunn. Another court document says more than 108,000 images were found on a computer at the home of Sean Adkins' mother in Big Spring. The Mitchell County Sheriff says those images included bestiality.
If that stark contrast wasn't enough to ignite a fire of rage inside you, the behavior of Sean Adkins behind closed doors was even more disturbing. His cold, emotionless demeanor extended far beyond a tasteless holiday party. During the intense investigation, police interviewed Hailey's uncle,
who recalled a deeply chilling, unforgettable conversation he had with the prime suspect. Hailey's uncle: "I just cannot believe that anyone in this world could have the heart to harm a poor, innocent 13-year-old child." Sean Adkins: "Yeah, well, it's just like killing a deer."
This single, terrifying sentence echoed through the police department. It was a completely devoid, emotionless response from a man living under the very same roof as the missing teenager. He equated the sudden loss of a bright, young cheerleader to nothing more than a casual hunting trip in the woods. Does this make your blood boil too, witnessing the chilling apathy of this man and the blind complicity of her own mother while a father wept in the dark? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to help us continue shining a light on these important cases and holding the guilty accountable, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support is the biggest weapon we have to make sure these stories are never forgotten. As the agonizing search for the missing 13-year-old cheerleader continued, investigators turned their full attention to the people living inside 1804 Chestnut Street. The FBI and Texas Rangers executed a comprehensive search warrant on the property, hoping to find a diary, a note, or any physical clue explaining the teenager's sudden disappearance. Instead, they walked into a deeply unsettling environment. What they uncovered hidden away in the home was a collection of absolute darkness that left even the most seasoned detectives completely stunned. Law enforcement officers discovered hundreds of pages of printed documents meticulously organized and carefully stored inside the house. This was not a normal family filing cabinet. The extensive physical archive contained detailed literature heavily profiling notorious serial offenders, extreme cases of domestic violence, and numerous books dedicated to dark occult practices and witchcraft. It was a physical library of pure psychological deviance, methodically curated by the adults who were supposed to be protecting a child. When confronted by authorities about this terrifying collection, Billie Jean Dunn casually brushed it off with a disturbing level of calmness. She told investigators that she and her boyfriend were just avid fans of the genre, dismissing the massive, chilling archive as nothing more than a harmless, true crime passion. I gotta be honest with you, calling that kind of obsessive archive a mere hobby while your daughter is missing is beyond incomprehensible. But the horrifying truth is, their psychological unraveling was about to be fully exposed in a cold interrogation room. To cut through the endless web of lies, investigators demanded that both Billy and Sean undergo formal polygraph examinations. The results were a massive, glaring red flag. Billy failed her test, showing severe deception on critical questions regarding her missing child. But it was Sean Adkins whose behavior truly escalated the tension. Feeling the pressure mounting, Sean became incredibly combative. He threw a fit of rage and aggressively stormed out of the testing facility not once, but twice, entirely refusing to cooperate with the examiners.
Dunn's mother, Billy, and her live-in boyfriend, Sean Adkins, came under the microscope. Both Dunn and Adkins failed polygraph tests during the initial investigation. According to the affidavit, Adkins failed the polygraph test once and walked out on 2 others, but at one point he did say Hailey could be found in Scurry County.
However, this is where the story takes a dark and unforgettable turn. Sean eventually returned for a 3rd attempt. Sitting strapped to the polygraph sensors, his defenses momentarily slipped. When the examiner pointedly asked him exactly where authorities could find Hailey, Sean coldly blurted out a highly specific location, Scurry County.
During the lie detector tests, when asked who authorities should be investigating in the disappearance of Hailey, Sean Adkins said, quote, "Both of us," referring to himself and Billy Dunn.
Then, the examiner asked him who the police should be looking at as the primary suspects in the disappearance. Sean's response was even more chilling. Both of us. The polygraph machine registered both of these shocking, spontaneous answers as the absolute truth. He had just pointed a massive neon arrow directly at a remote geographic location and firmly implicated the missing girl's own mother in the tragedy. Yet, before investigators could press him to elaborate on those terrifying confessions, Sean ripped off the equipment and walked out, leaving a room full of detectives in stunned silence. For over 2 agonizing years, a suffocating silence blanketed the small town of Colorado City. The frantic initial searches had slowly ground to a halt, and the national media cameras had packed up and left. The vibrant billboards displaying Hailey's beautiful, smiling face began to peel and fade under the scorching, relentless Texas sun. Seasons changed, empty holidays came and went, but the devastating void left behind by the 13-year-old cheerleader remained entirely unchanged. For her father, Clint Dunn, time simply stopped. He lived in a perpetual, waking nightmare, trapped in the agonizing limbo of not knowing where his little girl was. The community prayed for a miracle, desperately hoping she was still out there, alive and waiting to be found. But what no one knew was that the chilling answer to this mystery was already waiting in the desolate, quiet brush. The nightmare finally broke its silence on the 16th of March, 2013. A hiker was walking through a highly remote, rugged area near Lake J.B. Thomas. It was an isolated landscape, far removed from the busy streets of town. While walking through the dense brush, the hiker stumbled upon something that would make anyone's blood run completely cold. Resting exposed in the harsh wilderness were human skeletal remains, a weathered skull, and a femur bone. This is where the story takes an incredibly dark and frustrating turn. The location of this grim discovery was not random. Lake J.B. Thomas is situated in southwest Scurry County. For investigators, hearing the words Scurry County sent an absolute shockwave through the department. This was the exact, highly specific location that Sean Adkins had callously blurted out during his failed polygraph examination 2 years prior. If you look at the digital footprint, the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. When investigators mapped out the distance from the family home to this exact lake, it formed a terrifyingly clear picture. On the 27th of December, 2010, the very day Hailey vanished into thin air, Sean Adkins' cell phone did not just ping near the house. Historical tower data proved his phone pinged directly in this remote area of Scurry County. His digital trail led straight to the grave. For weeks, forensic experts worked meticulously to extract DNA from the remains. On the 26th of April, 2013, the devastating written confirmation finally arrived, shattering the last remaining sliver of hope. The remains were a flawless match. It was Hailey. While authorities kept certain details strictly guarded, it was later revealed that the bright, energetic cheerleader had lost her life due to severe blunt force trauma to the head. She had never run away. What struck me the most during this tragic turning point was the sudden, baffling reaction of Billie Jean Dunn. For 2 years, she had fiercely protected Sean. She had lied to law enforcement to hide him, minimized his chilling behaviors, and even moved hundreds of miles away to continue living with him while her daughter was missing. But the moment Hailey's body was officially identified, and the overwhelming physical evidence pointed towards Scurry County, Billie completely flipped the script. She went on national television and suddenly pointed the finger directly at Sean, publicly declaring her suspicion of the man she had relentlessly shielded. It was a jarring, incredibly hypocritical reversal that left the public absolutely enraged.
Exactly 1 year later, human remains were found in Scurry County near Lake J.B. Thomas. That's the place Sean Atkins told officers they would find Hailey. A few days later, and said she was suspicious of Sean and believed that he could have been connected to Hailey's disappearance.
Absolutely enraged. I gotta be honest with you, watching a mother suddenly switch sides only after the undeniable truth is unearthed from the dirt is incredibly hard to process. If you want to help us keep digging into these cases, exposing the truth, and ensuring these victims are never forgotten, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support is what allows us to keep demanding accountability. What do you guys make of this sudden change in Billie's story? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, because the fight for justice was only just beginning.
Tired of waiting for justice, Clint Dunn is adamant about finding his little girl's killer, now taking matters into his own hands with a simple but powerful daily Facebook Live.
I'm scared, and I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't want to know what I'm going to say. I want it to come out totally natural and raw. I want people to see my thoughts and to see my pain. That somebody killed Hailey there at her house, and I think it was Sean.
I would never do nothing to that little girl.
Me and Billie Jean went through the divorce, and that was her boyfriend. So we were kind of wanting best friends, you know. And I think that Billie Jean knows something.
A lot of flack for waiting 8 years. Clint's never waited to get justice for Hailey. He was promised an arrest when her remains were found. Looked at that father and said, sorry, we don't consider that new information. We can't make an arrest. He said, watch me. 5 weeks later, they made an arrest.
She says she wishes the investigation was done a bit differently.
They demolished the home where Hailey was last seen alive, and I believe they made a big mistake when they did it. I think that valuable evidence was lost.
He said he doesn't care if it takes 20 years to do this. And I do care if it takes 20 years. I don't want the person that hurt my kid that doesn't need to walk the street for 20 years.
While the physical search for the missing 13-year-old yielded heartbreaking results out in the desolate brush, the digital investigation into the adults in her life cracked open a completely different kind of terror. Investigators quickly realized that the physical home at 1804 Chestnut Street was only a fraction of the horror. The true depths of this darkness were hiding silently in the digital realm. This is where the story takes a dark turn. Law enforcement executed comprehensive cyber search warrants on electronic devices tied directly to both Billie Jean and Sean Atkins. What the digital forensics team uncovered was a massive, terrifying archive of pure depravity that left even the most hardened detectives profoundly disturbed. Analysts seized a Dell computer located at Sean's mother's house, along with a portable USB memory stick carefully concealed deep inside Billie Jean's personal bedroom closet. Hidden within these devices was a staggering collection of over 108,000 highly illegal, depraved image and video files featuring the severe exploitation of minors, alongside other deeply disturbing and illicit acts. Let that number sink in for a moment. 108,000 individual files. To accumulate such a massive vault of darkness takes considerable time, effort, and a deeply twisted mindset. This was not a passing curiosity or an accidental download. This was an extensive, meticulously compiled catalog of extreme digital deviance. The fact that a significant portion of this horrifying archive was located on a portable memory stick, tucked away inside the mother's personal closet in the very house where a vibrant young girl slept every night, elevates the terror to an unimaginable level. With such a colossal mountain of undeniable digital evidence, anyone would assume that swift justice and immediate handcuffs would logically follow. I gotta be honest with you, this part really makes my blood boil when you realize how a bureaucratic technicality can completely paralyze the pursuit of justice. Despite possessing concrete proof of this massive illicit collection, the prosecutors hit a deeply frustrating legal wall. The defense strategy leaned on a notorious loophole. Because multiple people, including Sean, Billie, and various family members, had potential access to these shared computers and portable devices, The district attorney's office claimed they could not definitively prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, exactly whose fingers clicked the mouse to download each file. Because of this shared device technicality, the authorities felt their hands were legally tied. No immediate charges were filed for the horrifying digital stash, leaving a grieving father and an outraged community completely stunned. But the absolute worst misstep of the entire investigation was yet to come. In what can only be described as a catastrophic and baffling investigative blunder, Sean's stepfather confidently marched into the police headquarters and firmly demanded the immediate return of the Dell laptop. Inexplicably, the authorities actually complied. They handed a critical piece of hardware, a machine tied directly to the prime suspect of a missing child case, loaded with a history of deeply illicit searches right back to his family. It was a devastating blow to the integrity of the investigation, essentially allowing crucial electronic evidence to walk right out the front door of the police station. While the official justice system seemingly stalled and let a prime suspect slip through the cracks, private investigator Erica Morse absolutely refused to let the trail go cold. She began digging deep into Sean's ongoing online activities in the years following the tragedy. The nightmare was only just beginning for other unsuspecting women in the area. Morse uncovered a terrifying, persistent pattern of digital stalking that proved the suspect's predatory nature had never faded. Using the alias Casey, which chillingly happens to be his actual middle name Sean, was actively targeting, harassing, and relentlessly threatening numerous women across West Texas. He sent them highly disturbing, violent videos to intimidate and terrorize them from behind a screen. Morse meticulously gathered these digital interactions, building a clear profile of a man who used cyber darkness to exert control. Yet, when she presented this alarming pattern of ongoing cyber threats to local authorities, pleading with them to intervene, her findings were largely dismissed. The sheer volume of glaring red flags surrounding this man is absolutely staggering. From the chilling 911 calls predicting violence, to the 108,000 depraved files, and the continuous cyber threats against innocent women across the state, the danger was always hiding in plain sight. Yet, despite all of this, Billie Jean chose to live with him, protect him, and even lie to law enforcement to hide him. She kept a USB drive full of unspeakable darkness in her own closet. Drop your take in the comments. Do you believe the mother was truly innocent, or did she know everything but chose to be an accomplice out of blind emotion? For more than a decade, the residents of Colorado City carried the heavy, devastating weight of an unresolved tragedy. The memory of the vibrant 13-year-old cheerleader felt frozen in time, trapped behind the agonizing reality that her suspected killer was still walking free. But eventually, it seemed like the relentless fight for accountability was finally going to pay off. In June 2021, a massive wave of relief washed over West Texas when law enforcement executed an official arrest warrant. Sean Adkins was placed in handcuffs and formally charged with murder. Seeing the prime suspect finally escorted into custody felt like an enormous, long overdue victory for Clint Dunn and everyone who had tirelessly searched for answers.
A lot of emotions going on. I'm first and foremost, I'm so elated, I'm so relieved that it finally happened.
Giving her renewed hope that her daughter's murder won't go unsolved or unpunished.
I'm not really shocked at the news that it was Sean after many years of communicating with Scurry County, and I thank God that that person has been apprehended and is going to pay for what he did here on Earth.
To physically cement this monumental turning point, heavy excavators were brought onto Chestnut Street, the notorious house at number 1804, the very structure that held so many dark secrets, where a young girl saw terrifying shadows in the hallway, was completely demolished. The entire town gathered to watch as the nightmare house was flattened into the dirt, a powerful, symbolic cleansing of a location that had brought so much pain. It truly felt as though the dark clouds were finally parting, and the path to a jury trial was clear. But what no one knew was that this fragile victory was about to be entirely ripped away. In June 2023, just 2 agonizingly short months before Sean Adkins was scheduled to face a jury in a court of law, the prosecution's foundation completely collapsed. The FBI intervened, issuing an urgent and devastating recommendation to the local prosecutors. They needed to drop the case. The heartbreaking reality of the justice system is that knowing who is responsible and proving it beyond a reasonable doubt are two vastly different battles. The entire case against the suspect was built on circumstantial evidence. While investigators had the chilling timeline, the lies, and the geographic data, they lacked a definitive forensic anchor. The historical cell phone ping data and the specific soil samples recovered from the suspect's shoes were ultimately deemed insufficient. They simply did not possess the absolute forensic certainty required to secure a flawless, undeniable conviction in front of a jury. Because of this massive legal hurdle, the charges were abruptly dropped. In a moment that shattered the hearts of the community all over again, Sean Adkins was released from jail, walking out into the world as a free man. The legal system officially classified the case as dismissed without prejudice. This specific legal designation means that the door is not permanently locked. Prosecutors retain the full authority to refile the charges and arrest him again if a new, concrete piece of physical evidence is ever brought to light. I gotta be honest with you, watching a prime suspect walk out of a jail cell after more than a decade of relentless fighting is a profoundly bitter pill to swallow. To have justice so close you can almost touch it, only to watch it evaporate on a technicality, leaves a devastating void. The emotional whiplash of seeing the nightmare house torn down in triumph, followed by the suspect walking free, is absolutely infuriating. The mirage of justice had been completely shattered, plunging the grieving family right back into a cold, waiting silence. The devastating dismissal of the charges in the summer of 2023 felt like a suffocating, heavy blanket had been thrown over the entire town of Colorado City. Watching the prime suspect walk out of a jail cell, completely free, was a bitter, agonizing reality for everyone who had poured their hearts into finding the truth. But this story does not end in the dark. Because the case was dismissed without prejudice, the legal door was never permanently locked. It was simply left cracked open, waiting for the right moment, the right science, and the right breakthrough to finally kick it wide open. As the years rolled on, through 2025 and into 2026, a powerful beacon of hope pierced through the lingering shadows of this cold case. The Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit officially stepped in, taking complete control over the entire, massive case file. They are not just flipping through old, dusty reports and faded photographs. They are completely dismantling the investigation from the ground up. This elite unit is now armed with the absolute cutting edge of advanced DNA forensic technology. Forensic science has evolved at a staggering pace over the last decade and a half. Trace evidence that was completely undetectable back in the freezing winter of 2010 might now shine like a glaring neon sign under today's modern microscopes. The authorities are meticulously re-evaluating everything, hoping that modern science will finally provide that one undeniable, concrete anchor needed to secure a permanent conviction in front of a jury. To amplify this renewed push for accountability, the Crime Stoppers organization has officially stepped up, offering a fresh financial reward. They are sending a clear, unavoidable message to anyone who might still be holding on to a dark secret in West Texas. They know that allegiances change, relationships crumble, and guilt is a remarkably heavy burden to carry for 15 years. It only takes one phone call, one tiny missing puzzle piece, to finally tip the scales of justice and close the trap entirely. But the true heartbeat of this entire, agonizing journey, the reason this case has never faded into obscurity, is the unyielding, fierce resilience of one man, Clint Dunn. When you look back at the sheer agony of the last 15 years, Clint stands as an absolute pillar of strength. Think about what this father has endured. He is the man who wandered the freezing alleyways with blistered hands while others callously celebrated across the street. He is the man who stared through binoculars with a shattered heart, watching apathy play out in real time. He is the man who eventually received the most unimaginable news a parent could ever hear from a remote, desolate lake in Scurry County. Yet, through all of that unimaginable suffering, Clint never truly broke. He forged his profound, overwhelming grief into an unbreakable weapon of sheer determination. He has been the one constant, the one person who never backed down, never wavered, and never allowed the world to stop saying his little girl's name. Clint has made a solemn, unbreakable vow to his daughter and to the public. He has publicly declared that he will spend the rest of his life fighting with every single ounce of strength he has left to ensure that the individual responsible is placed permanently back inside a cold prison cell. His relentless fight is the ultimate testament to a father's pure, unwavering love, a love that absolutely refuses to let the darkness win. What do you guys think? Does this ending bring you any sense of hope? Or does it make you even more enraged that justice for Hailey remains open? I'll keep digging if there are any new court rulings or breakthroughs in this case. Thank you for your comments and shares. Your voices are the biggest weapon we have to protect kids like Hailey.